I do want to finish off with this comment from Charles Pinster, and this is sort of a positive thing to end on, Don, because we've talked about how Spencer Petras still had some areas of his game that struggled, but Charles makes the comment. He says Spencer looked much more relaxed in the pocket in his first game back. I think I would agree with that. I mentioned before you came on, Don, it seemed like he did dial down the fastball. That's the first thing. I'm not saying he doesn't throw with some smoke, but he dialed it down a bit. And I did feel like he was going through his progressions. Now, maybe he was missing guys, but last year I remember him zeroing in on players and not really going through his progressions. And I thought his accuracy was okay. It would still be nice to see some long balls.
Yeah, one reason, of course, he was below 50% was because of all the throwaways. And as I've already mentioned, there were a couple of those he didn't have to throw away. He could have run for, I think, a few yards, maybe more than a few, and not necessarily taken a hit either. You know, he could have gotten down, but he just got to remember some of those times when he's throwing it away, he's actually pretty close to the line of scrimmage at that point. He really is, and so it's okay to advance the ball. It's okay to run it. If the coach says not to take hard hits, then run it on the ground before you get hit. But it's okay to have positive yardage when you flush. That's okay.
Ryan Brock says Spencer's still having trouble feeling pressure. Not seeing that cornerback blitz that Don mentioned earlier was concerning. I agree. Do you have any thoughts on that, Don?
Well, it's just a wake up call. What a great reminder that you need to scan the field. When if you get your bell rung because you never saw that corner, ultimately that's on you. You can't protect against a corner blitz. So that's really the quarterback's man. The quarterback, that's the whole purpose of scanning the field, of course. And as you've already heard me say, I don't care if you go left to right and then back to the middle, right to left and back to the middle. If you want to always start on the short side, that's fine. I would recommend starting on the wide side, then working to the short side, because now you're looking at that short side corner shortly before you're going to snap the ball. So you take a late look at that corner just to ascertain, does he look like he might be in position to come? It's not just the corner, too. You can take a look at that free safety over there to see if he's cheating down to occupy that space that corner's vacating. Obviously, if he's going to vacate the corner, then the free safety's got to be moving in the direction of that receiver. So I do think that Spencer's more comfortable in running our offense than he was. You know, you can't call him a veteran yet, but he's at least got a few starts under his belt, and he's more comfortable with his role, and he's a good vocal leader out there. I'm sure he's given a lot of good encouragement to his teammates, that sort of thing. But I still look one disappointment right now. Right now, I'm sure our fans, if they see Spencer have to hold the ball and look for a guy, and now the play's extended, and now he's out of the pocket, everybody's holding their breath because they're suspecting it's not going to be good. At best, it's going to be a throwaway for no gain. Yeah. At worst, it's a ball that might be picked, or maybe conceivably broken up by a defender that Spencer can't quite see. So, and then here's a thought maybe, because part of the problem in Spencer's defense, part of the problem is, you might blame Spencer, but the bottom line, when the quarterback has extra time, it's on the receivers to get open too. Maybe there's an argument for, we used to spend quite a bit of time on flush drills. You know, we'd practice that. Matter of fact, our players even understood, if you're running, think about this, it makes sense in a lot of ways. If you're running a shorter route and the quarterback breaks the pocket, now think about breaking deep, because sometimes a flush can turn into a deep throw. It's kind of funny. Deep defenders sometimes, when the quarterback leaves the pocket, sometimes their brain kind of shuts down and they lose sight of the fact that a receiver might run down the field on them. You know, they're looking at the quarterback because they're trying to figure out where he's going to go next, and they might not even realize that a receiver that's in the corner of their eye, he's actually breaking deep down the field. He's actually on top of the defense. I'll give you an example, a specific example. We had a tight end years ago named Mike Flagg. We're playing in Columbus against the mighty Buckeyes, and Chuck Long was our quarterback. Chuck flushed out of the pocket. Chuck was almost out of bounds, and at the last second, he throws the ball up 50 yards downfield to a tight end that is behind the entire Ohio State defense. Mike Flagg, who maybe ran 4.9 on a good day, somehow got behind all those defensive backs that run 4.5. Well, it's simply because they they were focused on Chuck and not on the receiver that might be breaking deep down the field. So our basic rule was if you're running a short route, think about breaking deep. It's kind of the equivalent of a double cut again. You know, they thought you were short, now you're deep, and now they're beaten. And for that matter, if you're deep down the field, start coming back. You know, so that you're trying to give our quarterback an option with the receiver coming back toward him, and then a home run option deep down the field. So that's the basic way we handle flush. I don't know that Coach O'Keefe teaches it that way. That's just the way we taught it.
From your vantage point, how many of those throwaways were the result of just nobody open, and how many were the result of Spencer missing a guy down the field? I know one play they showed replayed on the Big Ten Network. Luke Lachey was open, number 85, tied in 2. But how many of those plays was there actually an open receiver down the field?
Yeah. I think one time, if I'm not mistaken, our backup running back, he was motioned out wide and he went down a seam, and I think he was open deeper down the field. And obviously at that moment, I don't think Spencer ever saw him. He might have even been open in the seam where he was supposed to catch the ball. And then even after the play was extended, I think he was open further down the field. I'm not sure because I don't have the advantage of seeing all the TV angles. And sometimes the replays don't show that either in the stadium even. But that's something for us to work on. I think in Spencer's defense, some of the time there simply wasn't anybody that opened up. And that could be a good point of emphasis for game 2 is when Spencer does leave the pocket and buy time, we got to help him out. We got to find a way to be open. We have to have a plan for how to react when the quarterback flushes to us or away from us. That's basically the only ways he's going to flush, of course, is toward you or away from you as a receiver. And the simple rule again, if he's flushing away from you, you need to be working in the same direction he's working. But now if you're in position, you got to get in position where he can get the ball to you for starters. Obviously, if he's running with a lot of speed to the right, then you don't need to be running hard away from him. You need to be working in his direction, and you need to be prepared to be coming back toward the line of scrimmage to keep those defenders on your backside. You got to be sure that nobody undercuts you. And the best way to do that, of course, is to keep squeezing back toward the ball. Let's face it, if you catch a ball in that situation for a gain of 5, that's sure as hell better than a throwaway, or for that matter, a sack short of the line of scrimmage, or sometimes a quarterback where he's not aware of where he is, he runs out of bounds for -2. That can happen sometimes. But the bottom line, we got to help that quarterback because he's under duress. We got to try to work in his direction, and we either need to be breaking deep downfield or coming back toward the line of scrimmage.
Charles Pinster mentions regular punts. I thought Torrey Taylor punted well, very close on some of those punts inside the 10, inside the 5. So close to having tremendous punts, but it looks like Torrey's improved the traditional punt.
Yeah, he did a good job today, and our coverage I thought was good. I am a little concerned. There's a time or two where I was a little concerned about whether or not we were going to get the punt off. You know, they brought good pressure a couple of times, and I think the one thing maybe here's what I used to call it as a head coach. Our punter understood if the only way for them to get back in the game is maybe block a punt. In that situation, we simply referred to this particular punt that you're about to go on the field and execute is what we call get off. I'm not concerned about style points here. You just got to catch it and get it out in a hurry. I'm anticipating they're going to try to get to that block point. And I'm not even concerned about a punt return at this point. I just want to be sure they don't block it and run it back for a touchdown. If they have to run through our entire coverage team, that still gives us a chance, of course, to corral that return man. But for God's sakes, just get it off. Get it off and get it out in a hurry because it is a concern. You know, we've had a few punts blocked around here. Anyone has. And we need to be sure it doesn't happen to us. But I could see maybe where teams might be encouraged a little bit with the fact that Indiana came close a couple of times today. I'm not saying they came as uncomfortably close, but they were in the neighborhood to get one blocked at a time or two, and that's a concern. We got to be prepared for an all-out pressure, and that's when the get-off punt comes into play. We're not worried about getting a great punt. Just catch it and get it out.
And I'll answer this question here from this listener. Did we really expect much out of the offense after we jumped out to a big lead? I don't think we expected much. Of course, you get a field goal in the second half, and that was it. My disappointment in the offense was I never really saw, so many, like you mentioned, the 2 pick sixes. I thought special teams obviously did a lot of work. I just was a little bit underwhelmed. Not saying I expected Spencer to throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, but I don't think just because they were ahead that again, I'm looking solely at when Spencer did throw the football down the field and when he did hand off to his running backs, just a little bit underwhelmed with the blocking, with the receivers, and with Spencer's game. But maybe I'm overreacting on that. I'm trying not to, because that's one thing I hate about
the one thing I can tell you, because one of the parts of the report, the analytics that I do, I actually look at games in which a lead was lost. And just to give you an idea and give the listener an idea, last year there were 3 games in the Big Ten. The biggest margin that was overcome in the entire season was 17 points. That happened 3 times. It is not easy. And of course, it was 31-3 at the half. We're up by 28. One reason you didn't see us take a lot of chances on offense is because we're protecting the lead. And let's face it, Indiana never really demonstrated that they were capable of putting up a bunch of points in the second half. That wasn't the way the game played out for them. So I think we were pretty conservative with offense. I'm sure we had some plays in for Indiana that we didn't run, simply because we decided we'd go ahead and hold them for some other opponent up ahead. It wasn't flashy. I think I only recall what I would call one exotic. We ran 1 reverse late.
Yeah.
Incidentally, that was to Tyrone, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
And it did pick up some yards. So maybe that was our way of maybe trying to throw Tyrone a bone, because the other play had happened not too much earlier, as I recall.
That was the previous play where he was underthrown. Yeah.
Previous play, no less.
Yep.
I think calling that reverse had everything to do with trying to settle Tyrone down. We haven't forgotten about you. It didn't appear that we really called plays with the idea of targeting Tyrone, but sometimes it's hard to say. Obviously, if the coverage is not in cooperation, then maybe he didn't get the ball, even though we were trying to get the ball to him. Because you could say the same thing about Indiana and Freifogel. I don't think I think pretty much every time they targeted him, it seemed like he caught it. I don't think there were that many balls thrown in his direction. And you said he caught 5, is that right?
I believe he had 8 targets.
8? Okay, 8. Well, he wasn't targeted many more than 8 times, I don't believe. Yeah. I'm not sure of that, but that's my perception as the game played out. I didn't think they were trying to get the ball to him as much as I feared they might.
Yeah, he had 5 catches and 8 targets. Sorry, I should have.
8 targets, okay. So there were 3 others that fell incomplete for whatever reason. Maybe a couple of those were broken up even on our part, because we certainly did a good job of being near the ball.
A little bit nervous that they've got Ivory Kelly Martin returning, or at least the next guy returning kickoffs with Charlie, because they are not deep at running back right now. And I'm not questioning Kirk's ability to make a decision there, or LeVar Woods for that matter. But does that make you nervous that you've got your second best running back as the number 2 kickoff returner right now?
One word answer, I'd say no. I'll tell you why. I get the 2 Williams running backs mixed up, but I've seen enough of those guys to feel that they're pretty capable runners too.
Okay, all right.
And I'm basing it only on that scrimmage that they had on Kids Day, I guess. But I'm favorably impressed with both those guys. I think they're one of those. Maybe it was one of the spring workouts. I actually sat right nearby to one of them's family, so I had a chance just to observe him because his parents were sitting right in front of us, and I couldn't help but notice you're talking about your son, so I'm watching your son too to see how he's playing, and he showed okay. I think I'm not saying they're anything resembling Walter Payton, but it looks to me like they're pretty capable, responsible, hard-nosed runners. And if we lost Ivory on a kick return, I think we'd still have a capable guy to fill in. And the other thing, of course, the good news, if one of those guys had to fill in for Kelly Martin's an older player. He's not going to be around forever. The guy filling in for him is going to be with us for a long time. So he needs to get in the mix at some point in time anyway. And of course, the best way to stay healthy in any play of a football game is just to go hard. And near as I can tell, Ivory's going to do that all the time. So I will admit that on a kickoff, there's a little higher incidence of injury. And you didn't see, I kind of like, one of the plays that bugs me about college football nowadays is fair catching a kickoff on the 5-yard line, and we don't want to
Yeah.
run it out because we're just afraid somebody might get injured. Oh, okay. Well, do you really appreciate the game of football? Do you understand it's a contact sport? I hate that rule. I don't like that rule. I understand it, because they're trying to cut down on injuries. But it still does my heart good to see a guy bring the ball out of the end zone. And Charlie Jones did that several times today. And I'm sure against certain coverage teams we won't try that. But I'm sure the scouting report, I'm sure LeVar felt comfortable. I think we can bring it out, and I think we can get beyond the 25. I think we might be able to make it to the 35, and I think a time or two he did. So, and with Charlie, of course, there's always a chance it'll turn into 105. There's that possibility. So I'm glad to see us taking the ball out of the end zone against certain coverage teams that maybe have demonstrated they have killer coverage units. We'll probably think twice about doing it, but for Indiana, we felt it was a good risk, and I think that assessment was correct. I think we're out beyond the 25 just about all the time.
And I thought as Amir Smith-Marsette's career wore on at Iowa, that he became a slightly less effective in special teams because more kicks went into the end zone. He took more knees in the end zone, and maybe that's LeVar or Kirk telling him to settle down. I don't know, but certainly Charlie showed that fearless mindset, and I like it too. I think kickoffs are a great part of college football, and unfortunately, they have sort of lost importance, at least in the minds of many coaches, I think.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Anything else to add on the Hoosier win and the Cyclone game next week?
Well, the good thing about today's game, the defense played well and obviously gained some confidence with how they can play, because Indiana, based on last season, of course, was a legitimate threat to any defense. So that's good that we gained confidence and played well. We kept them out of the end zone. If you hold a Big Ten opponent to 6 points, you did a lot of things right. And the good news from an offensive standpoint, there's no way, even though we won by 28, there's no way the offense is going to feel great about how they played. So they're going to show up with the understanding we got to be better next week than what we were this week. We didn't help the defense as much as we need to. If you think about it, this is a pretty good way to look at any matchup. There are really 3 games within one. There's your offense versus their defense. There's your defense versus the opponent's offense. And then, of course, there's kicking game versus kicking game. I would suggest to you, Corey, if you win 2 out of those 3, you typically win the game. And today, if you looked at the game, you would have to say, well, the defense for sure won versus Indiana. You might even argue that our offense versus Indiana was a push. We ended up with 300 yards, but we only had a couple of scores. And we don't feel great about our productivity on offense. That's all true. But the other thing you have to say is we very definitely won in the kicking game. So at the very least, we won 2 out of 3. You might even argue that we won 2.5 or 3 out of 3 out of those matchups. So it'll be a challenge next weekend, and our guys know that. They've so many of the experienced players have played in the games, know what the rivalry is all about. And let's face it, as you well know, Matt Campbell's never beaten Iowa, and that's one thing that sticks in his craw, I'm sure. So we're going to get their best effort, and that's okay. That's what we should expect, because that's exactly what we're going to give in return to them. Nothing but the best.
Anything else to add, Don?
No, I'm just really looking forward to next week's game. It's going to be a significant game. Of course, Iowa State's going to drop in the rankings a little bit. It's entirely possible that Iowa's going to be ranked ahead of them going into the game. Doesn't really matter. Safe to say we're going to be very, very much evenly ranked, and the betting spread will be just a few points, not many. I thought today was going to be a one-score game, but
I did too.
A couple of pick sixes changes everything. And
Absolutely.
I hope we have that same disappointment next week. We thought we were going to get a one-score game, and it didn't happen. As long as we get a win, I'm not upset with that.
I don't want to forget this one last question. We just got another question come in. Do you think the D-line played their lanes well and got an average pass rush?
I think so. It's hard to assess everything from your seat in the stadium, but sometimes a replay does help you to get an idea for that. But I thought, in general, we didn't have any glaring mistakes in terms of pass rush lanes. You didn't see a huge, you didn't see a running lane wide enough to drive a truck through, anything like that. I think we did a pretty good job of staying in our lanes and not giving Penix too many chances to escape the pocket. We had him pretty well hemmed in, and he mostly threw out of the pocket. And that's the way we'd like for it to be. We don't want him on the run all day long because good things generally happen when he's on the run.
Don, should I be happier with a 34-6 victory? I'm not. I feel like I need to be more enthusiastic, and I'm caught up in worrying about this Cyhawk game next week. Do I need to? What would you tell a player who's looking ahead and not enjoying the night of a win?
Well, I would tell him, I'm sure exactly what Kirk told him. Enjoy yourself tonight. Be smart with your decision making, of course, but relax, enjoy the win, and understand that the 24-hour rule is in effect. Tomorrow we got to turn our attention to the Cyclones, and this is a preparation that every day must count in this preparation. We have to be sure that we're better on Tuesday than we were on Monday, better on Wednesday than we were on Tuesday, and for that matter, better on Saturday than we were as we finished up the week. Anything less than that, you have to have the mindset anything less than that's not going to be good enough.